Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Okay, well, this is another one of my favorite interviews, someone who is an author. But this is a special person. This is a person who just by chance I've known when we were living in Miami. We were both married and we both had our lives, and we were at the University of Miami. And Carol, actually, her name wasn't what it is today. It's Carol MILOT. It's actually, so it's Carol. You know, I have to say this, that it's Carol Luter MILOT, really, right? That's what I say. But
that's correct.
Right. But it wasn't that when I knew you, and it was another name, but we won't pull that name in. But one thing that's great about Carol is she's very talented in anything she does. She's a fantastic artist. But when she decided she was going to write a book, it would have to be good, but there had to be a reason for her writing it. So I'm going to let you tell our audience why you decided to write this book called A Nickel for the Boatman.
Great, Anita. I'm really happy to be with you. Okay, so I was inspired to write this book by the stories, many stories that my father told me all the time I was growing up. My father is 98 today and still alive. But from the time I was a very young child, he always entertained me with stories about the olden days in Miami, when Miami was called the Magic City, and it was sort of a paradise back in the 20s, which is when he grew up there. And his stories were so amazing. There was just so much material there that it was just really fertile to do something with. And so after many years of thinking about it, I thought, if this could be kind of structured as a novel, this could make a great book. And so that's what I started doing. I started thinking about creating a character that would be basically my father as a kid, and then a story that would allow all of these great details about Miami to come out and be described.
So let me ask you this. So when you were little and your father was telling you, were you like other kids, a ho-hum, he's always telling me these stories, or did you really appreciate them?
I think I really appreciated them, particularly the ones that were, there were so many that were so exciting. The great hurricane of 1926 and his going to school with Sonny Capone, Al Capone's son. They went to the same school, and just some of the stories that he would tell, so that they were really good. I didn't really blow them off. I remembered them.
Okay, well, so let me just follow up on some of this. So you really decided to write a book, and it's not casual, but of course you've taught English, so you do have a lot of knowledge, don't you?
Well, as far as general writing, yes, I do, but this was the first attempt at a novel for me, and that's a very different kind of writing. It was a learning experience for me. There's a lot that goes into creating a storyline and characters and meshing everything together, and so I learned a great deal while I was writing this, and it wasn't just an overnight thing. I think I probably worked on it for maybe 3 or 4 years.
Really?
Before I actually had it.
And did your dad know you were doing it?
He did, and we corresponded. At that time, he was still living in Miami, and we corresponded through the mail and over the telephone, and I would kind of, test out what I had written and to see how it sat with him. Yeah, and he was very helpful.
I'm sure he's very proud of this now, too, because I have to say that when I picked up the book, I usually review a book pretty quickly. I just go through and just kind of run through it to get a feeling. I loved it. I couldn't put it down. And of course, a lot had to do with, because I did grow up I lived in Miami a long time, but it was, you have really learned how to do character development, and you made it exciting. And I hated some of your characters. I don't mean, the way you wrote it. I didn't like them and what they were doing, but it was pretty good.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun to try to develop characters that were interesting. And I suppose the two most fictionalized characters in the book were Manny Silver, who is sort of the devil. He's a mentor to Eddie, but he's kind of the devil sitting on his shoulder, so to speak.
Right.
And Father Horka, who was one of his high school teachers. And so he had the one role model who was sort of enticing him into the great world of criminality, and because at that time in Miami, everything was just out there. There were, gambling, and it was during Prohibition, but there was bootleg rum and a lot of different things that a kid could really get into, and especially a kid who was kind of a socially, maybe not the most, at ease person socially, which
right.
my father really was.
Yeah, he didn't have a lot of friends. He really just needed something.
He was a shy,
yeah.
He was a shy kind of person. But, when he meets, and he comes from a family which, the truth was that my father's father actually was a photographer, and he did society photographs in Palm Beach and Miami of different celebrities that would be there. So that part of the story is actually true. But
is that, Carol? Is that where the photographs is that where the photographs came from? Your father's photographs?
Some of the photographs,
yeah.
Some of the photographs, yes. But a lot of my grandfather's, he used a camera that made glass negatives. And during the hurricane, the 26th hurricane, his boxes of glass negatives were destroyed. So a lot of his work doesn't exist any longer, and that's kind of part of the description in the chapter about the hurricane.
Right,
as he loses his glass negatives.
Yeah, it was, and the other part about this is, of course, there were a lot of famous people living besides characters like Tennessee, Williams. There are a lot of very famous people at that time.
Oh yeah, and Hemingway came down. Fitzgerald spent a lot of time in Miami, and Lindbergh was there in and out all the time because of the sort of burgeoning commercial airline industry that was just starting up. And these are all people that my father, as a child, actually saw, because he loved to fish, and he lived not too far from Dinner Key, which is where the old
right.
I guess the closest thing to an airport that
Pan Am. Yeah, Pan Am, exactly. Right.
Yes, and it was where the pontoon planes came in. And my dad used to hang around at Dinner Key a lot. And so he saw Lindbergh. Many of the things that are related in the book were actually from his memory. Of course, there are a lot of things in there that are, completely fictionalized, some of the murders and whatnot. But otherwise, a lot of it is based on real observation and real experience.
Well, and I was just curious, since you have now written another book, another novel. What's the name of that novel again?
Oh, the second book I wrote
yes.
Is called Trail of Evil.
So, you're such a gentle person. I don't know where you're getting all this stuff from.
Well, someone said that to me, that they they were kind of astonished at some of the gruesome things that I wrote about. But I guess that's part of writer's license.
Yeah, that's true. But
you can create anything that you want to in your head.
Yeah, that is true. But this one was probably easier because there's so much history in this one. I haven't read your other book, but this is really historical. And the nice thing, though, is you bring back Miami, at least for people like me and like others who do remember the Fontainebleau. They remember all the jazzy stuff and all the people who got caught doing things, and especially
absolutely.
I told Carol that I lived on Palm Island for a while, and my son actually I guess, one son actually went to the Capone house, and they had underground passageway out to the Intracoastal for when, he was running away from people.
And I did a lot of research, and that was something I did not know. So you told me something that I didn't, that I really didn't know about. But I know that having, your memories of having lived on Palm Island, and my memories of living in Miami in the 50s, it was like living in paradise.
Yep.
It was a beautiful place and very, at that time, quite unspoiled. And I spent a lot of time hanging around, at the beach. And so it was in that way, in that respect, I think it was kind of easy for me to write, because a lot of the things, the episodes that take place in the mangroves, and, I spent a lot of time in there myself. So it was easy for me to write about that.
Well, the other thing is that if you think about it, the whole area was, it was just kind of growing up. We didn't have those tall buildings that they have downtown now. They were, it was like you go off to Key Biscayne, or we did have the cruise ships in the 50s. They were coming through, but not like they do now. And it was just starting to grow. And South Beach, of course, that's where I really grew up. I went to Miami Beach High School, and there were a lot of older people there. And, of course, that's all different. But it was a different time, and I think I felt that when you were writing, and it really was nice to find that. And then, as I said, I liked the pictures in the back. There weren't enough of them. I wanted to see more. I probably could have, if I knew you at the time you were writing, I probably could have given you some old pictures of things that we did.
That would have been great. No, and my favorite picture actually is, and I think I mentioned it to you earlier, but one of the things that I was surprised to discover when I was researching Al Capone was I came across a picture of his brother.
Yeah, I see that. I'm looking at that.
I have forgotten his brother's name, but there was a picture
James.
of him and
Al Capone's older brother, James.
I think it was.
Yeah, I'm looking at the picture right now. It's also known as Two Gun Heart.
Right. He wanted to be a cowboy, and I thought that was the most hysterical thing I could, that I had ever heard. Right. So I couldn't resist putting him. I actually put him in the birthday party, and he wasn't really there. But I thought this was good to pass up.
Yeah, but and the other part also that I think you did something was really good was people now experience the hurricanes, and we really did experience with Irma, a very serious hurricane. But can you imagine having this man come from up north, and he's decided, he's an entrepreneur, very wealthy, and he decided, okay, I'm going to build this bridge all the way from Miami, wherever it started, down to Key West. Yeah. Oh my gosh, what an enterprise that was!
I know. And it was those, pioneers that kind of made Miami what it was, so that by the early 20s, people were flocking from the north, flocking down, wanting to buy a piece of land and strike it rich. And, and then once they got here, they found out there were lots of downsides, like hurricanes and, and an economy that, could support certain things, but not other things.
And lots of mosquitoes.
Oh, lots of mosquitoes. Yes.
The other thing I'm looking at in the pictures, the downtown Miami East Flagler Street in 1926. Well, I wasn't there in 1926, but it looks pretty much the same as when I remember the place. And I don't know if you know this, but the Olympia Theater, which you do know, I'm sure, is there, and it's now been turned into the Gusman Theater. But
I know.
It's fabulous, and we see a lot of things there.
It is. And didn't you go to the Olympia when we were kids?
Yes.
And see movies there?
Yes.
I did. It was a big,
vaudeville and
big place to go on a date.
That's right. So, see, I got a lot more from this book than probably other people may. I mean, other people don't know Miami, but what really has made this book so interesting, there really are some bad people in it, and they do things that we now see sometimes on television, some of the series that are pretty bad. But you really picked that up, and Yet the nice part was there was this young boy who did get caught up in all that because he didn't have the kind of family that would have helped him. And he wound up, and I'm not going to tell the rest of the story yet because I want you to read it, but he winds up in a certain way, and it was sad in a way for him, but it was also, he learned his lesson, I think. Did he?
Yes, he learned some pretty important life lessons, and and I think there's kind of relevance today in a way because teenagers today are. I taught school for 30 years, taught high school, and I see that kids today are still, they're. We don't have prohibition anymore, or rum running, or bootleg liquor, but we have drugs and we have other things that are an enticement. And the idea of get rich quick, and so I think that kids today still could, even a high school student could identify with the kinds of things that the character goes through.
And the interesting thing, since you're very close to your father, and I'll just say that the relationship of Eddie, and his relationship to his daughter was really interesting because Eddie suffered about his life. He saw things and did things he really was sorry he did. And he suffers a lot. And his daughter comes and tries to help him, which I thought was really beautiful.
Well, he does. There is a lot of real stuff in that part because my father did actually have a stroke, and so and I went through a lot of things with him when that happened, and of course in our real life we were never estranged as the relationship in the book is, but we're very close and we've shared a lot of things, and in fact I take care of him today still.
Yeah, and it's so nice, and the fact that you have now written this book, which he is responsible for in a certain way, it must really be very exciting. Did you have to read it to him? Because you told me he has some macular degeneration. Did you read it to him when it was finished?
Actually, I think I gave him a printout that I made of the manuscript, and I just blew the print up large enough that he could read it. And so he actually read it and made comments, and I know that he really enjoyed it. So,
well, one thing I want to tell our audience, well, that was great. I think that when people write, they do like their family to like it and for their friends to appreciate it. But I do want to say that we thought enough of it that is the book of the month in our January issue. So for those of you who've just gotten your January issue, you will see it on the cover. Did you get your issue, by the way, yet?
Did I?
Yes.
No, not yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I think we just mailed it out. Oh, we just mailed it out, as a matter of fact, so you should be getting it. It is online now. You could go to our website.
That's exciting.
Right, and you could see it, but I'm looking at it right now. I think you're going to like it, and he is going to love it to see it's right there with some other beautiful pictures. So we're very proud of you that you now, and I did my best for your review. It's, as I said, I enjoyed the book enough that we wanted other people to have it. This is the kind of book, it's not very big. I mean, it's not very long. It only has, let's say, about 220 pages, and so you can get through it quickly, but it's the kind of thing you want to take on the plane with you, or you want to take on the vacation, and especially if you have any interest in Miami. Even if you don't, you'll still enjoy it. But it's I highly recommend this book. And so have you had you have a book club or something there? And first let me say that Carol is calling in from a place near Dallas, which is called Richardson. So we appreciate your doing that. But are you involved with other kind of authors and with book clubs?
Not anymore. I've kind of become quite busy in the last year or two, and I have not done that. But I did. I was invited by the library, the public library in Richardson, to come and speak to a book club that is connected with the library. And I took my father with me. That was back when he was still more ambulatory than he is now, and they really enjoyed meeting him and asked him lots of questions, and that was kind of fun. And I know that it has been that book has been the choice of a number of book clubs. One in St. Augustine, I know, and another in Dallas. So it's had a pretty good readership.
And the name is interesting, A Nickel for the Boatman. And I'm not telling you what it means, but when I first saw that, I thought, that's a strange name. But of course, after I read the book, I understood it. How long did it take for you to come up with a name like that?
Oh, quite a while. I had a long list of possible names, and there's a lot of actually symbolism in the book. If anybody likes symbolism in novels, there's a lot there to bite onto. But the idea of the coin in the slot machine is kind of an important part of the book, and the fact that in mythology, when a person died, if they wanted to be carried to the underworld, they had to have a nickel for the boatman, or they had to. And that's where we get the idea of putting coins on a dead body's eyes.
I didn't know that. But tell me about what. Why don't you tell us about that? What is that?
Well, in Greece, the idea was that, and I guess it's if you have read Dante's Inferno, you have the boatman Charon, Charon, who takes souls after they die. He takes them to the underworld, and they have to pay him to take them. And so I just thought the idea of having this. Well, I don't want to give away any of the details.
No, don't.
Of the
but
story,
I see.
But I think that
interesting. So you said that they actually put the coin in a person's eye to.
Well, back in the not that long ago, if someone would die at home or on the battlefield or something, to keep their eyes from opening, keep them closed, they would put a coin.
Oh, I didn't know
eyelids.
that, Carol. I did not know
and
that.
that has kind of a connection to that idea as well. So,
see, you're just full of all this kind of stuff. So let's divert just a minute and just talk a little bit about your art, and that you've had a wonderful life in Italy also with your great husband, and so you've been really an artist in many ways.
Oh, I've been blessed. I've really been blessed, and at the art experience that I've had, actually, I owe that to the job that I had. I was a teacher at a private school in Dallas for nearly 30 years. And as well as teaching English, I also taught photography and art. And I had an opportunity to have a great facility there, a wonderful art room with kilns and all kinds of stuff. And so I had a great opportunity to create art. And unfortunately, I don't. Other than painting, I don't do too much anymore because I don't have all the tools to do it.
But if someone wanted to get on your website, I think they would enjoy that. So how would they go? It would be just Carol Lutor or Carol Milot, MILOT, or what?
Yeah. I mean, I don't really have a website of just my art, but I do have some albums. If they went to my Facebook page, I have some albums, and one of the albums is my work after retirement. And so in there, I have some photographs of some of my pieces.
Did you sell your art?
I've sold some of it, but actually, a lot of it I just make for my own enjoyment. So I'm sitting here right now as I'm talking to you. I'm looking at a painting on the wall, and I have sculptures sitting around the house that are things that I've done, and I just kind of I like them, so I haven't sold them.
Well, that's
I don't
good.
create them for money, and I didn't. Actually, I haven't written my books really with the idea of getting rich. But I think when you have a story to tell, or you have an artistic idea, you're just compelled
Yeah.
to do it, or at least I have been.
Yeah, that's very true. That most people don't make money on their books. It's really true, unless you're one in a million. But people do have that passion to write, and you need to do it, and you need to. It's just an energy out there. I've always said that. I mean, my husband wrote books, and he sold some. He still sells a few, but it's really what's inside you. I mean, a lot of people have quite a bit of stories. I mean, I get a lot of people from the Holocaust here in South Florida who have written very painfully written books, but they have to write them.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. So, I'm a happy person, and I have been blessed in my life after I retired from teaching. My husband and I were able to buy I guess you'd call it an apartment, but it's part of a villa in Italy. That was a 13th century farmhouse near Siena, and it was restored and divided up into individual units, 8 units, and so we've had that for 10 years. We just recently sold that, and so for 10 years I was able to spend a lot of time in Italy, which is where my family are from, my mother's side. And it was just, I can't think of another word but blessed.
And I'm going to
really
just
been a blessed person.
tell you that our time is up. But you see, you got through this. You were nervous about it, but I knew that your book was great and you'd do it. So everybody, it's A Nickel for the Boatman, and it's by Carol Luter Milot, LUTER MILOT. You can go to authorhouse.com and buy the book if you want. You'll see it as the book of the month in the Boomer issue in January. So thanks so much, Carol.
Terrific. I love talking to you, Anita. I hope to talk to you again.
We'll do that. Bye.
Bye.